Coming up on the show, President Donald Trump says there's now a suspect in custody in the assassination of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. We're going to take you to that press conference as soon as it begins. We'll take it to you live. Also, a call to arms from a Georgia sheriff after a deadly light rail stabbing in North Carolina. Why it's more than just a push for residents to arm themselves. And the age-old question, are we really alone out here in the universe? We're going to unpack new research from Mars showing that there may just be some life out there. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines. We look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to give their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. But let's start you off this morning with this. This week, the Supreme Court lifted a lower court's order restricting ICE from making immigration stops in Los Angeles. The justices ruled 6-3 to allow ICE to again consider race, language, and location and stops in the case as the case continues. Dissenting justices, however, warned that the decision effectively sanctions racial profiling, putting Latino communities and even U.S. citizens at risk. The ruling is temporary, but signals how the court could ultimately reshape limits on immigration enforcement nationwide. It's a ruling which is well received by the border czar. Take a listen.
For instance, they say, well, ICE officers jumping out of vans in Home Depot. Were they there during the surveillance? Were they there when they were copping license plate numbers, who's dropping them off and where they're going? Were they there when they're pulling intelligence reports on some of these employers? Were they there when they're running NCIC and III on these people? Were they there when they're listening to wires? Were they there during any investigation? No, but they seen the culmination of this. They said, well, where's the reasonable suspicion? I trust the professionals of the Border Patrol and ICE, all very well trained, to make sure they establish reasonable suspicion to briefly detain and question somebody, and the Supreme Court agreed with me.
All right, here now with more reaction on this is Andrea Young. She's the Executive Director of the ACLU of Georgia. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, you just heard from the border czar. What's your reaction to what he had to say?
Well, I find it very disturbing. You know, it's one of the things viewers should know is that one of the plaintiffs in this case was an American citizen and was arrested by ICE because of the way that he looked, because of where he was, and this is racial profiling. And we have been fighting long and hard in this society that says your skin color should not mark you as a person for inferior treatment. You know, I grew up in a segregated Atlanta as a Black person as a child. You know, there were places I could not go because of my skin color. And it seems like the Supreme Court is saying that they are willing to tolerate that kind of treatment of American citizens based on their color. Perhaps they have an accent where they happen to work. And we find that, you know, we find that to frankly violate what we understood to be equal protection under the law and a ban on unreasonable searches and seizures under the Fourth Amendment.
As we mentioned earlier, this is temporary, but you think this is how it's going to be going forward?
Well, it's, you know, we certainly would hope not. I think one of the concerns also is that the court is issuing these kinds of decisions without explanation. This is on what they call their shadow or emergency docket. And so there's not really an explanation of how they justify this. But there does seem to be a pattern that, you know, when you look at decisions about considering race and college admissions and things like that, it seems like, well, you can consider race to hurt people, but not consider it when you're trying to level the playing field and to make sure that you're addressing, you know, the impact of past discrimination. So it seems very contradictory. Of course, Justice Sonia Sotomayor issued a very strong dissent and said that we shouldn't have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. And I also have to say that, you know, there are immigrants from other places. So what if they're looking at Irish immigrants? You know, what if Georgia has you know, a large population of Koreans? We just saw a raid at a factory where Korean nationals were actually helping to train American citizens to do high-tech jobs. And so this, this assault is really very traumatic for a lot of communities who thought that America was a welcoming and inclusive and safe place for everyone, regardless of race, creed, or color.
What do you say to viewers who think that, now, well, this is just a Los Angeles issue, not here in Georgia? What do you say to them?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely not true. We are seeing raids in Georgia. As I said, we just saw this in Korea. I mean, in terms of Korean nationals helping to build the Hyundai facility down in, or the LG battery facility down outside of Savannah. So this is something that is happening widely. And as I said, right now this litigation is about people who appear to be Latino. It can be other groups. We have a large population of African immigrants in Georgia, immigrants from India. Any time that immigration enforcement apparently decides that they're going to look for people who are not in the country strictly lawfully, this kinds of thing can happen. And it's, as I said, it's deeply disturbing and certainly not what we thought the status of the law was with respect to everyone being able to enjoy equal protection under the law.
Andrea, we've got less than a minute here. I want you to ask this question for me. At the end of the day, do you really think, let's talk about what's really at stake here. Is this just about immigration, or is it about equal protection rights for all Americans?
Well, this is about all of us. This is about saying, again, are we a welcoming country? Are we a multiracial, multicultural country? Does everyone deserve to be treated with dignity when they are within our borders? And treated with some level of respect. They're treating workers like, they're dangerous criminals, raiding workplaces and then throwing people face down on the ground and treating them like, they are, as I said, hardened criminals when maybe they've overstayed their visa. Maybe they came to try to find money to send back to a sick relative in their country. Mm-hmm. So, this is just very different from what we have seen and how we treat people in America. If you are in America, you are protected by the Constitution. Yeah. That has been our belief. All right. And so in the context of that understanding, this is very disturbing. Andrea Young, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's quickly take a look at the 7-day outlook for today, and it does show us warming up even more. 87 degrees for the afternoon high temperature for today, and tomorrow we'll go to near 90 degrees on Sunday. We'll stay right there as we start the work week next week, but staying dry. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. The breaking news this morning, President Donald Trump says there is now a suspect in custody in the assassination of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is both the Yemam. She's in this morning. Good morning to you. And what do we know? I know that we have a press conference that we're going to go to as soon as it comes in, and so we're going to toss that as soon as that press conference starts, just to bring you the very latest. But both, what do we know about the alleged gunman at this particular time?
Well, here's what we know right now. President Trump making that announcement on Fox News, saying with a high degree of certainty that there is a suspect in custody. Law enforcement officials confirmed to NBC News that a family member of the suspect saw the photos released by the FBI yesterday and turned him into police. What else we know? This man is in his early 20s and is from Utah. We do want to point out here that the person has not been named, and law enforcement officials have yet to formally announce any arrest. Law enforcement, state, federal officials have been updating the media formally in the past 48 hours with 2 news conferences. And so to hear it from the president now, everyone is waiting for this news conference to have more information, potentially the naming of that suspect. Again, that's happening at 9:30 this morning.
Yeah, we know the FBI has a $100,000 reward for his arrest, or had $100,000 for his arrest. Talk to me about the public's response to this.
Right. Authorities say the public's outpour of support has been tremendous. They've been counting on it to crack the case. And apparently, if what we're hearing right now, all of the reports and a suspect is in custody, then it worked, right? They released those photos. The FBI says it hasn't received this many digital media tips from the public since the Boston Marathon bombing. Police received more than 7,000 leads and tips in less than 48 hours. And that doesn't even count the amount of video footage that they received, somewhere along the lines of 200 pieces of video, potentially from cell phones of folks who were at that event that day.
Yeah, many still mourning the death of Kurt. How has the President Trump administration continued to honor him?
Well, we know that Charlie Kirk's casket arrived in his home state of Arizona on Thursday, and Vice President J.D. Vance traveled with Kirk's widow and honored his longtime friend with a final flight on Air Force Two. President Trump says he will honor Kirk with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the government's highest civilian honor. And we are hearing talks as of last night, potentially of one or two lawmakers now pushing to have potentially a statue around the Capitol of Kirk, but no word yet on the details around that. Of course, right now, all eyes are on the suspect right now that's potentially in custody. And lawmakers also here in the D.C. area are looking for this news as they've been on edge. There's been fear, unease, as you can imagine, as lawmakers are asking now a call to really improve and boost their own security. Others are pushing back, saying it's not in the budget, but it may be something where they'll have to create space for it.
Gotcha. Both of you, Mom. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for that insight. Really appreciate it. All right, as we stated, a press conference is going to be underway any moment now. We're going to go to that live as soon as it comes underway, as a suspect now has been announced, at least, that a suspect is in custody. All right, a local sheriff is urging citizens to arm themselves. We're going to go to him and talk to him why he feels that this should be the case when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Well, the video itself is very shocking here. A 23-year-old woman who recently came to the United States from Ukraine to escape the war with Russia boards a commuter train in Charlotte. Then a man sitting behind her stands up and proceeds to stab the woman to death. He now faces first-degree state murder charge, along with one federal charge, which carries the potential for the death penalty. This act has led to one local sheriff to urge law-abiding citizens to arm themselves and be prepared. He's here now to explain his thoughts on this. He is Butts County Sheriff Gary Long. Sheriff Long, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Was it this one act or this and other things that has led you to make such a public statement?
You know, it's just what's happening. We had an incident here in our county where someone had tried a home invasion, went through a window, and the homeowner did, in fact, use a firearm in that case. And you know, we battle with the court systems constantly. This is a thing, and I say the court systems per se, but the states across the country do, letting criminals out of jail that shouldn't be out of jail. And you know, I'm a firm believer an armed community is a safe community, and when I say that, they need to be well trained and they need to understand the importance of gun safety. That's why we teach them this. But when a criminal knows that we're not going to be soft targets and that they're going to get resistance from the people that they're preying against, I think they will probably find somewhere else to go commit their crimes. Yeah.
You wrote that you were completely baffled that no one on that Charlotte train stepped in. We saw a video here recently of a woman being punched in a store. There were people around. Nobody stepped up to do anything. What do you think that says about public safety readiness?
You know, I think that I think cases, for an example, you know, I had some of these posts come up on our Facebook post, but the Daniel Penny case out of New York on a subway, and you know, we're in Georgia, we're not New York, but the Daniel Penny had to go to trial to be found not guilty by a jury, and I think that creates hesitation, and hesitation can equal to death, and people don't want to get involved. But it's one of those things, I tell my people this all the time. If somebody, I can't speak for all the counties in Georgia, but I can speak for this county. If one of my citizens defend themselves or a third person from death or great bodily injury, and they go to prison, I'm going to prison with them because I mean, they have a right to defend themselves. And, you know, people need to get involved. Look, I know that stabbing in Charlotte on the light rail could not have been prevented. It was too fast, too aggressive, and too rapid. You wasn't gonna stop that. They had plenty of opportunity to subdue the guy afterwards. But more importantly, and I'm starting a class for our citizens called Stop the Bleed. The girl literally sit there and bled out, got in the floor and bled out. People sitting beside her, people sitting behind her, 5 or 6 people in front of her, and not one person on that train rendered aid, and that bothered me deeply. But then I asked myself, I said, Sheriff, well, Gary, what's the problem? And you know, maybe they don't know that they need how to stop the bleed. So I think it's important as leaders of law enforcement in our community to train the public to be able to do just that and render aid. And so that's what we're going to do. I think we have to be ready. The world is, and the country is more violent than I think I've ever seen it. And the people, the first line of protection is people protecting the people.
Yeah, your guys are going to start classes to teach people how to handle firearms and other things like that?
We are. We've done that since I come in office in 2013. We run a citizens firearms course. You know, the night I made that Facebook post, we had over 70 individuals apply to attend the course. So we run that course. We have a sponsor that pays for the course, and we're going to run that course once a month. And I'm going to continue that as long as we have to get as many people trained and proficient with guns and gun safety. And then we've teamed up with our local fire department here in the county. And next month we're going to start, and that will be the launch of the Stop the Bleed, CPR, and first aid classes that we're going to be teaching to the community.
All right, real quick, I got about 30 seconds left with you. What's the one thing you want Georgians, as they're looking at this right now, listening to what you're saying, what's the one takeaway you want for them?
You know, I think be observant. Pay attention to your surroundings. And I'll say this: if you're going to a venue, if you're going to be on a transit system, MARTA, whatever you may be on, I know not all the time we can, but try to travel in pairs. That's the golden rule. Always have a partner with you. But be observant. Be observant. Don't be scared to help. Don't be scared to intervene and try to save someone's life.
There you go, Gary Sheriff Long. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Well, you may want to avoid the downtown connector this weekend. GDOT's Natalie Dale will break it all down for us when we come back. Well, if you thought Atlanta traffic was already a test of your patience, buckle up. The downtown connector is getting a new makeover this weekend. Time to bring in friend of the show, Natalie Dale from GDOT. Natalie, how you doing?
I don't know how I'm going to be your friend after this weekend if you have to travel on the downtown connector.
Well, I'm
good. How are you?
They should listen to your words very carefully like I do and stay friendly. So what exactly is happening on the connector this weekend?
So we are in the process of resurfacing the downtown connector, if you haven't noticed already. It's something we've been working on since the spring, throughout the summer, but we're sort of in the heat of some really substantial lane closures during the weekend. We're working overnight, milling that layer down. Now, over the weekends, we get the paving done, and our contractor has a couple of weekends back to back where they have some aggressive lane closures. That is 3 to 4 lanes in each direction. Think about that. One lane, fender bender on one lane can shut down the downtown connector, but we're talking 3 to 4 lanes in each direction throughout the entirety of the weekend. Now, if they finish early on Sunday, great, they're out of the road, but motorists should expect really to avoid the downtown connector north and southbound for the weekend as these contractors get that fresh layer of pavement down on the lanes that have been milled.
Let me ask you a question, Natalie. If we were to shut that down completely and had rerouted traffic, does that make it go faster, or is this the right way to do it? Is this the best way to do it?
In theory, yes, it would make it go faster. In practice, that is just not something we could ever do.
Gotcha.
Now, you saw when the I-85 bridge collapsed, we were able, that whole stretch of road was closed. We got some resurfacing done there because there were no vehicles on it. But think about the impact it would have. The downtown connector has hundreds of thousands of cars that travel through, both local trips, work trips, people traveling through the city. The bulk of that traffic, if that traffic had to move entirely off the downtown connector for a resurfacing project, the side streets, 285, other areas, they would not be able to sustain
Gotcha.
the traffic that would have to come off the downtown connector. We would create gridlock around the city. It just wouldn't be something that would be sustainable or safe. So we work overnight during the weeks, and then we take a couple of these weekends to get some really big work done. It is inconvenient, absolutely. We only have to do it about every 10 years, but because of the amount of congestion, amount of traffic daily that's on the downtown connector, it has to be done at a higher frequency than other roads. Think about rebuilding your house around you as you are living in it.
Yeah.
No, it is not convenient, but for the safety of our road preservation, it has to be done. And so the best thing that we can do is get the word out through you to avoid it, if at all possible. If you do not have to be on the downtown connector this weekend, you do not want to be on the downtown connector this weekend.
What do you recommend as far as a route to get around the construction?
Well, it entirely depends on where you're going. And let's be honest, we have many work zones throughout Metro Atlanta right now. So we're working I-20 and I-285 eastbound and westbound interchanges. We have one lane closed I-85 southbound at the North Druid Hills I-85 project, and we have work on the 285 top end. So taking all that into account, the best thing you can do, since your trip is very specific to you, is pick up your phone, pick up that smartphone, make it smart, make it work for you. Put it in Google Maps, put it in Waze, put it in Georgia 511. Know before you go, because again, while the contractor can work all weekend, they may be out of the road on Sunday. It may be smooth sailing.
Yep.
It may not be, but you need to know before you go. Do not take my word now that everything will be open by X. You need to check before you go. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, it's in your hand. You have a good idea listening now to the take what to expect.
Yeah.
But again, you have to really sort of drill down to the specifics for your trip as you are getting in the car.
Yeah, that's why we have you on the show every week. Now listen, you got the Georgia Tech game going on this weekend. We got Atlanta United at the Benz. What do you say to them? I mean, because that's going to be happening during the daytime. How will the folks be affected by that?
So you're going to want to carpool if you have to be downtown. You know, find some friends, find many friends. Get in that vehicle together. You're going to want to use public transit. You're going to want to go around the city. Again, use the tools at your disposal to figure out what the best option for you is. These are all exciting events. You know, last week we had the Falcons home opener, and so our crews were able to get out of the road on Sunday for that. So you just have to really sort of take control of your own trip. Use all of the tools in the toolbox, the oldest term ever, but do it. Use all of the tools at your disposal. Carpool, public transit, alternate routes. Do what you can to not be stuck in traffic, because here's the thing. If you decide that you're going to go the downtown connector way, after what we saw last weekend, you're going to miss the game.
Absolutely.
You'll be sitting on the downtown connector, and we don't want that to happen.
All right, Natalie, really appreciate all your insight. Appreciate you coming on every week. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Don't go on the downtown connector.
That's right. That's right. Don't do it. Not this weekend. Thanks so much. All right, folks, it's known as a silent killer among men. We're talking about prostate awareness when we return. That's coming up on the show. But right after the break, we're going to get the latest on the new episode of the Georgia Vote. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Well, politics certainly top of mind in the wake of the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Joining us now, as he does every week, is 11Alive's Zach Merchant, co-host of the Georgia Vote. And Zach, I just want to remind the viewers that at some point this morning we are expecting a press conference because of the suspect being brought into custody. That's the word that we got from President Trump. So at any point we may break in to go to that. But welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk about this. Charlie Kirk, man, he had a tremendous influence, right? How has his killing, sparked Georgia leaders? What are they saying?
He was a fantastically influential conservative, really somebody who spoke to a young generation of conservatives. I heard some reporting earlier this week that Charlie Kirk had said at one point that President Trump told him that he was one of the 3 or 4 most responsible people for President Trump's election victory in 2024. And that may sound hyperbolic, but I think a lot of independent, nonpartisan political observers would say that he really was able to engage a young generation and move a lot of them who had traditionally, that young demographic, been staunch Democrats, most of them, moved a significant chunk towards the Republican and the conservative, the MAGA perspective. His assassination, it was shocking. It shocked everyday Americans, of course. It shocked the political world as well. Reactions poured in from across the political spectrum. I want to read just a few of them to you. The Georgia Republican Party chairman, Josh McCoon, he said he was heartbroken by the killing, and he went on to say that he was calling for the death penalty of those, he said, convicted of this heinous act. Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican, he said that this was nothing short of evil. That's how he described this assassination. And he went on to say that political violence is never the answer and it must stop. Democratic lawmakers from Georgia echoed that sentiment, condemning political violence, some of them saying that while they didn't agree with many of Charlie Kirk's stances, they condemned the attack on him, his killing, and they upheld and wanted the ability to speak freely in America to be able to also be done safely. I want to end on this point with this. Charlie Kirk was superbly influential with young people, right, Chesley? Recently, just yesterday, there was a joint statement released by young people, a joint statement from the College Republican National Committee and the College Democrats of America. So these are the two big organizations of college kids that are politically active. The Democrats and the Republicans, they said in part, and this is a quote, "Political violence of any kind is absolutely unacceptable. We must always remember that members of the opposing party are not our enemies, but our neighbors and our fellow Americans." That's what the college kids are saying right now.
All right. Well, let's look to Georgia politics right now. There's questions swirling around the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger's future. What did you learn this week, Zach?
Yeah, the Secretary of State, we've been sort of keeping a close eye on his status in Georgia politics for some time now. He made some news in an interview with us a few months ago where he strongly teased, maybe, but certainly suggested that he was paying a close attention to possibly running for higher office. This week, he took another big step towards making that happen. I want to read a very brief statement from him that we got earlier this week. He said, "Tricia," that's his wife, "Tricia and I are prayerfully considering how we can best serve the state of Georgia. I will be seeking higher office." That's what Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said earlier this week. That means, of course, if he's seeking higher office, he is not running for re-election as Secretary of State. Still some blanks left to be filled in, though. If you're an astute reader, if you're an astute listener of this, you might say, well, Mr. Secretary, what higher office? We've asked that question. We don't know yet. He has not said, but you can think either Senate or governor are highly likely, Chesley.
All right. I got to wrap with you, Zach, but what else do we need to know for the Georgia vote real quickly coming up?
A lot to cover. Of course, we're going to be covering more on the reaction to this assassination of Charlie Kirk and the alarming rise in political violence that we have seen across the country in recent months and years. We're going to be breaking it down this Sunday.
All right, sounds good. You can always watch the Georgia Vote with Zach Merchant and Faith Jesse Sunday mornings at 11 right here on 11Alive Plus. Really appreciate that, Zach. All right, it's often called a silent killer, yet prostate cancer remains one of the most common and most deadly cancers for men in America. Here now to help us better understand this Prostate Cancer Awareness Month is Dr. Kennard Hood from the Emory University School of Medicine. Dr. Hood, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Chesley.
All right, why is this called the silent killer?
Well, a lot of men just don't know they have prostate cancer. You know, we hear people talk about it and we hear that our neighbors and our coworkers have it, but you know, we're not sure exactly what the symptoms are, and men aren't great at finding out about their health and what to look for.
Is that we just don't go to the doctor to find out what these early warning signs are? I mean, what should we be looking for?
Well, exactly. You know, I always like to say that men, we have a man problem. And the man problem is that we don't like going to the doctor. We don't want our cholesterol checked, blood pressure checked. We don't want any of it done. And so that's why it's so important that we have this done. So the symptoms you want to look for are problems urinating, a slow stream, difficulty getting your stream going. Also, sometimes frequent urination can be a problem, or dribbling, or blood in the urine. So these are all symptoms that, you know, you really need to have checked out.
How does prostate cancer symptoms that you just mentioned differ from other less serious conditions that men may just dismiss this over?
Well, the great question, and the reason why is because there is something called BPH, benign prostate hypertrophy. It's an enlargement of the prostate that almost all men get as they age, and oftentimes the symptoms are identical, and that's why it's important that when you see your doctor, get the blood test, a PSA blood test, to check to see if it's elevated, and do more tests need to be done.
Something more important to you and I, it's higher risk amongst black men. Is that a biological component or something else?
It is. That's a genetic component that black men have. So even people of black ancestry from the Caribbean, same thing. Black men in America, same risk. As a matter of fact, it's so high that black men are 2.5 times more likely to die from prostate cancer than their white counterparts. And, you know, nationally, the rate for getting cancer in the prostate is 1 in 8 for all men, but in black men, it's 1 in 5.
Is it important to know your family history? Is that part of the issue for us?
Yeah, many people don't want to talk about their medical problems. They don't want to talk about their urination and if they had prostate problems or prostate cancer. So we just don't know.
My father passed away. I was only 9 years old at the time. My grandfather before him. So I don't know how far back I should go. Well, in my case, what do I do?
So the most important people are what we call first-degree relatives. So that includes your father, your brother, and also your son. So if you have an older adult son who, let's say, is over 40 and they develop prostate cancer, you might be in your 60s. But that also tells you that you may have a genetic predisposition to prostate cancer, so you need to get checked out too.
Yeah. How much of a stigma or a lack of awareness in the community plays a role in late detection?
Oh, that's a huge role because, you know, we know that prostate cancer is 95% or more curable if you detect it early. It's one of the most curable cancers there is. And so one thing we've done at Emory, we're rolling out this prostate cancer mobile unit sponsored by Arthur Blank Foundation starting this month. And you're going to see us in communities around Metro Atlanta and North Georgia.
All right. And so give me the particulars before I let you go. Like what age should we start getting checked and how often we should get checked? Give me all those.
All right, we're encouraging men to come up. If you see the big blue bus, come up and have your PSA checked, because if you're over 40 and you have a family history, and you need to have that checked. Also, the PSA test is free, and we do it the new way through your blood, not the old-fashioned way that everybody hates. So when you get on the bus, you only have to have blood drawn.
That's it, right? And is that becoming now the thing? Because I know there's still some doctors out there that do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, men are afraid to have that part of the exam done, so they don't want to go to the doctor at all. They don't get their blood pressure checked, nothing, because they haven't gone in years. I'm not having that done. Gotcha.
Dr. Kennard Hood, thanks so much for your insight. Thank you for what you're doing for our community and keeping us healthy, okay?
Thank you. Have a good one, Jason.
All right, take care now. The government is suing Uber. CNN's Maribel Abram, he joined us, and unless this press conference comes up, folks, we're waiting to see. We're going to hear more about this potential suspect and the assassination. So stay right there with us. We'll keep you updated right here. Welcome back to the show. The U.S. government just sued Uber, accusing the ride-sharing company of discriminating against passengers with disabilities. CNN's Maribel Abram joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning to you, Maribel.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right, break down this lawsuit to us.
Okay, for passengers with disabilities, Chesley, it could mean being protected from improper fees or ride denials. The DOJ's suit claims some drivers have wrongfully charged their riders a cleaning fee when they have a service animal. In other cases, passengers have been hit with a cancellation fee after drivers denied them a ride. Other customers have complained that drivers use demeaning language or refuse accommodations like sitting in the front seat for more room. The suit demands that Uber comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act and adds undisclosed monetary damages and fines. Neither side has publicly commented yet, Chesley.
Ooh, more on that to come, I bet. All right. Lawyers for President Trump are now asking appeals court to let him fire a federal board chair.
That's right, Chesley. The president is hoping a federal judge will reverse a lower court's ruling earlier this week, one that blocked Trump from ousting Fed Governor Lisa Cook before next week when the central bank meets again to consider interest rates. So Trump's administration has accused Cook of committing mortgage fraud. She denies those claims and is not charged with any wrongdoing. Trump has repeatedly criticized Fed Chairman Jerome Powell for not cutting interest rates. Cook has supported Powell's stance. Barring a move by the federal judge, Cook will be part of the next rate decision come Wednesday. And Chesley, I know we're waiting to see what happens with Mirren, but we don't, lawmakers, at least according to Reuters, don't think that a decision on him will come in time to meet that meeting.
All right, we'll have to wait and see on that. All right, we got a new deal between Microsoft and OpenAI. How might that change the AI race?
You know, it could put more players in the game, Chesley. After Microsoft agreed to let OpenAI pursue other partners, Microsoft currently has exclusive rights to sell OpenAI software tools through its Azure cloud computing platform. The company's invested around $11 billion in OpenAI since 2019. The two have now signed a non-binding deal that would let OpenAI restructure into a for-profit company. This allows it to pursue collaborations with other cloud providers to expand sales and secure more capacity. Full details were not disclosed, Chesley.
All right. It could be a huge shakeup between movies and streaming, I understand.
Okay, Chesley, a sale of Warner Brothers Discovery to Paramount could be gaining some traction. The Wall Street Journal reports that new owners are preparing to make a bid. The move comes as Warner Brothers Discovery, CNN's parent company, prepares to split into two companies next year. And according to the Journal, citing anonymous sources, Paramount wants to make its bid on the whole company. Before that happens, Comcast, Amazon, Netflix have been named as other potential bidders for all or part of WBD. On that news, WBD's shares jumped 29%. Paramount's gained 15% Thursday. Both companies declined to comment on the Journal's report. You know, Chesley, from a purely market perspective, you know, when one company acquires another, the target stock usually is the one that goes up, and the buyer's often goes down. The reason the buyer generally offers a premium, like higher than what the target stock price is trading at, right? Both went up here. We got a lot happening in media, and the one thing I think you and I know very well, content is king.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that. Content rules, content rules.
Yeah.
Maribel, thanks so much, really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, take care, have a good weekend. Plenty more stuff for you to come up after the break, folks, and we're going to talk about what could be out there as far as in space. We'll talk about it coming right after the break. Welcome back to the show. We may be closer to knowing if there's life on other planets. NASA just announced that a sample collected from on a Mars ancient dry riverbed could be evidence that life may have existed out there or maybe still exists. Here to talk more about it and how this could change our minds is Emmy Hughes. Hey, Emmy, how you doing?
Hi. Good. Thanks for having me, Chesley.
I understand you're a planetary geologist and postdoctoral researcher at Georgia Tech. Thanks for being on the show. Let's get right to it now. You've researched Mars. What's your reaction when you hear this news from NASA?
Well, it's very exciting. It's really a kind of a thrilling discovery. You know, I think for people who study Mars and people who study the solar system, finding evidence for life is kind of, you know, the golden nugget. It's what we really want to see. It's one of the most exciting things we can find. And this is some, you know, truly incredible evidence that there may have been some process, it might have been biological, that produced the observations that we were seeing here with the Perseverance rover. So it's a really thrilling discovery. I think the community is excited to be able to talk about the findings with the public.
I understand. It seems like we're always looking for water. We're always looking for some type of water because we know that must be sustaining life. Is there anything else? Is there something else that would lead us to have more firm belief?
Yeah, so I can talk about it in this case specifically. So, you know, with the setting, the geologic setting, as you say, we're looking for water. So this is a river channel that fed an ancient crater lake on Mars. So because we know there was water there, that's already very exciting to see if maybe this environment might have been habitable. And then some of the other things that were exciting specifically about this rock are that we found evidence of organic carbon. So the Perseverance team finds a little bit of organic carbon. That's exciting for us because, you know, that's part of the backbone of life on Earth, and is a really good sign that, you know, there might be something interesting happening. And then there are other chemical signatures that folks look for. So, you know, we often look for phosphorus, for nitrogen, for oxygen. And then here we see that there were some phosphate bearing minerals that, you know, also may be involved in a process involving life, or maybe not, but it could be life, which is what's so exciting. So it's a collection of different things.
Well, you know, when we think of life, okay, we instantly go to maybe some of the movies and we think of these alien types, you know, that kind of thing. Go ahead and temper our expectations here. What form of life could this be?
Right. So, yeah, we're not talking about little green aliens, you know, wandering around on Mars. We're talking about microbial life. So, you know, single-celled, maybe, or maybe multicellular organisms, but very, very small, doing chemical processes that, you know, involve maybe some of the different minerals that are on, you know, in these environments, and then producing other kinds of things as a byproduct. So not, you know, we're not talking about mammals, we're not talking about kind of, super kind of advanced life like we have, like we are human beings. We're looking at sort of microscopic, microbial life potentially.
See, that tempers it just a little bit. Do you think do you think NASA will now speed up plans to get back there to Mars for testing?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So, a Perseverance basically threw the whole kitchen sink at this rock and analyzed it with everything that the rover had. And now we've sort of published the findings from this. But the most important thing now, I think, is to return these samples back to Earth. Perseverance is part of maybe a larger idea for a mission to have a rocket go back to Mars to collect these drilled targets. So this sample was drilled and then return them to Earth, where we have incredible tools, amazing instruments that we can use to really verify whether or not these are biological materials, or indeed whether they are abiotic, which is the null hypothesis. So I think it's a great question. I think this has drummed up a lot of interest in the community, and I'm hopeful that this can, encourage us to maybe think about getting these samples back to Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is true, right, if we believe this, there could be others out there as well. Mars is close to us, right? Venus, we got us, Mars. Which one is better for sustaining life? And I guess, and I'm saying it as if, life here on Earth, obviously, but obviously, which is better? Which would be a better planet, or is it even further out?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Mars and Venus are both close to what's called the habitable zone for our solar system. So this is an area where you may have stable water. Venus is extremely hot, and the expectation is actually in Venus's ancient past, billions of years ago, it actually may have looked a lot more like Earth. You may have had oceans, and then this runaway greenhouse effect may have led it to be a totally, at least for our standards, uninhabitable environment today. So, to go look for modern life, it's probably not the right place to do it from my perspective. On Mars, you have this incredible geologic record that's preserved on the surface. You don't have as dense gases that heat up your instruments, so it's a little easier to go there and explore the surface. And indeed, we also see evidence for ancient water in Mars's past. So for modern exploration, Mars is an exciting place to go, but Venus's ancient past may have been not so dissimilar from Earth's, and maybe advantageous to life as well.
All right, so we're excited about it, and we're going to continue to follow this. I want you to come on back as we get closer, get new research, and kind of break it down for us each step. Until then, we're just going to believe that women are from Venus and men are from Mars, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmy. Really appreciate it. Emmy Hughes, ladies and gentlemen, really appreciate your insight on that. All right, folks, when we come back, we got another look at your forecast, plus my final take right after the break. Hot, 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 especially for this time of year, folks. We should be around 85 degrees for an afternoon high temperature. We're going to be well above that as we head through the next couple of days. Today is no different. Mostly sunny skies will be the call. You get those little cumulus clouds that pop up during the afternoon. That fair weather clouds is what we call them, folks. They don't take too much away from our sun. Looking good. 87 degrees for the afternoon high temperature for today. We'll do it again for tomorrow, looking at 87 for your Saturday. Sunday back up to 89 degrees for the high. Now we're going to hit 91 degrees for the high temperature on Monday. Tuesday looking around 90 degrees. If we had one more 90-degree day, that would be considered a heat wave, but it doesn't look likely. We're going to go back down into the upper 80s as we head into Wednesday, Thursday. There's some models out there trying to hint at some showers coming our way late next week, but they're all differing. And so we're going to hold out the pattern that we're in right now, at least until we get some better evidence that there could be some wet weather coming our way. Until then, know that we're not going to see any raindrops, folks, just that heat around our forecast area. All right, it is Friday and it's been a rough week so far, right? So for my final take, I wanted to end on a positive note. So let's shout out an outstanding member of our community who's no stranger to helping others. I'm talking about none other than the Director of Community Relations at the Henry County Sheriff's Office and NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal. Once again, coming to the aid of a grieving family in North Carolina who lost their 4 daughters in a fire. Now, upon hearing the news, Shaq teamed up with Henry County Sheriff's Office to help alleviate some of the family's burdens. As a result, Shaq and the Henry County Sheriff's Office engaged other Metro County Sheriff's Offices to pitch in and cover the funeral costs for the loss of the 4 sisters. Well, having a big family himself, Shaq says that this was all motivation. This is all the motivation he needed, saying that they were innocent lives, full of promise, taken far too soon. This is not just a gesture of support, but a moral responsibility. Glad to know folks like Shaquille O'Neal still watch out for others in our community and beyond. Need more like him. need more like him. Man, love to see that. Thank you, Shaq. Really appreciate it. You know, he's a frat brother of mine. You know, it's what we do. Omega Psi Phi. All right, folks, we got a press conference that's going to come up. We're talking about the suspect that was taken into custody that was announced by the president. So we're going to bring you the latest on that coming up. Have a great day.